Hey, good afternoon and good evening to folks, depending on where you're located. My name's Tara Ingram, and I'm really happy to have you here today. We're here for uh, first of a six series workshops on the way through building resilient and resource activists. Uh, and we, let's see. I'll start with an introduction. My name is Tara Ingram, and I am she, her. I'm in Sacramento, California, which is Nisi known land. I've been involved with Move to Amend since 2012, um, and I'm a psychotherapist here. Um, so, Move to Amend was my introduction to activism, and I've been on the board for quite a while and been a volunteer. And one of the things that we prioritize is education and cultural change and supporting community. So that's a lot of the motivation for developing a course like this, a course that helps people deal with anger, despair, burnout, overwhelm, and supports us to do what we all want to do, which is act towards a better world, to build a healthier, safer world. Um, and give it a few moments here for people to join up. We have Alfonso Saldana is supporting with tech today. Thank you, Alfonso. This course started actually quite some time ago, and it's a collaborative effort um, with um, Greg Coleridge, who's been doing movement work and activism for decades. He recently retired as co-director with Move to Amend, and is going to be continuing to be active as a volunteer. So Greg and also Jason Bayless of A Radical Guide, who has also been a lifelong activist and has been until recently on the Move to Amend board. So Greg and Jason and I collaboratively created this course. And I would also say that the course is collaborative with the movement leaders and activists and authors of the resources that we drew on. I view this course like a quilt, where the fabric is all these pieces from all of these people who have experience and wisdom and insight and things to teach all of us. And this course is us putting it into a pattern together that we can learn from with each other. So I'd like to just actually speak first to that we are recording this. However, the chat, anything anybody puts in the chat will not show on the recording. And if you prefer to be invisible to the recording, if you turn off your camera, then the recording won't show that you are there. So the recording is for people who have registered, but they're not able to attend. So before we really dive in, I want to pause and just acknowledge what we are all witnessing happening around us. The fear, the anger, the danger, the uncertainty, the not being able to picture what the future will be, being afraid of what the future might be, the violence that's happening now that we are all so many more of us are exposed to seeing and experiencing, and that has a long history. And that this is the world that we're facing. And one of the most important things that we can do in response to that is to cultivate communities of care, to cultivate care and support with each other, and not in a overly sentimental way, in a fierce way, in a strong way, in a caring way. So this, at the heart of it, that's what this course is. It's us being able to care for ourselves and what happens inside of us, and also us being able to care for each other and turn to each other for wisdom that maybe we have known in the past in our cultures, and maybe have forgotten some of them. So some people have already started to introduce themselves in the chat. Please feel free to do that. Again, reminding the chat does not show in the recording, so it's only for this present moment as we are together. You can give your name, where you are on the planet right now, and what brought you here. So this course, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen so that I can show you. And I ask for your uh, slight patience in with my screen sharing. Technical skills are a little bit wobbly. So is anybody having problems seeing the seeing the screen share right now? So this is the main page of the course that we have developed. The official title is The Way Through from Overwhelm, Burnout, Despair, and Anger and into Effective Action. The course is focused primarily towards people who activism, organizers, but really it's anyone who cares about the world and it feels this longing to contribute to a better world. I'm going to put in the chat I just put in the chat the link to the course. This course is self-study. It's free at no charge. It's no charge. It's available to anyone who's interested. And there's also, let's see. So this free program was curated and designed by Move to Amend, which is a coalition that's working to dismantle corporate personhood and money in politics. It was developed as part of our commitment to the values of community and continued learning. To learn more about us and the work that we do, you can visit movetoamend.org. So this is the first, like I said, of a 6-part series. We're going to hold a session every 3 weeks, and you can attend any individual session or the entire series. They're meant to be standalone, although they do build on each other. So I'm going to scroll down, and you can see the course has a number of lessons. The piece we're going to focus on today is grief, anger, and emotional resilience. The other sections are what you love, your core values, and personal strengths. Transforming emotions into action, grief, anger, despair, and motivation. Socialization and liberation, breaking free from cycles of oppression. The way through, protecting joy, and taking collective action for a compelling future. And a closing. We have a course outline that gives a little more detail of each of the sections. And paste the course outline link in the chat. You can also just go to the course and poke around, explore. So our focus today is on grief, anger, and emotional resilience. Movements, the most successful movements are aware of the ways that there's this very profound interplay between our personal transformation, our inner worlds, and public action. So this course really draws on a legacy of movement history to learn from those who've gone before us and those who have been in this fight a long time and have had to learn how to keep going, how to learn how to sustain themselves, how to learn how to help each other sustain each other. Our world is facing a polycrisis of urgent, overlapping, simultaneous crises in multiple realms: economic, environmental, social, governmental, across the board. And we all feel it. The isolation, overwhelm, hopelessness. I hear so many people talking about it. I have my own experience of it, of course. So this course is really about learning how to work with these emotions, which can really get us stuck, and help us transmute them into liberatory action so that they become a source of information, a source of inspiration, and it can be a really profound change as we learn to work with this wisdom. Our emotional interior landscape is really a profound resource to support meaningful action towards positive change. So, in reference to the polycrisis and the way these things are linked, I'll be reading a number of quotes throughout the session. And this one is: thinking in terms of climate versus racial justice versus the crisis of democracy as all kind of separate crises really doesn't serve us. And we're hearing this incredible chant coming from mostly youth who lead most of the climate movements, youth who lead most of the Black Lives Matter movements, youth who lead most of the indigenous sovereignty movements, all saying the same thing, which is these crises are interconnected. And acknowledging the interconnection in a way can be reassuring, or it can help us see it's not just a bunch of separate things, it's all linked in a web. And so that begins to give us strategies for facing it. One thing you can do is have a journal or a notepad ready for the reflection exercises that we'll be going through. And the first author we're going to draw from is Dr. Sarah Jaquette Ray. My apologies. Just getting oriented here. I got my way out of where the video is. So Dr. Sarah Jaquette Ray is an educator and researcher at Cal Poly Humboldt. And her work focuses on the ways that our emotional and inner lives are absolutely central to our ability to engage meaningful change in the world around us. And here's this 3-minute video clip where she is in an interview, and she is speaking about the ways that the inner work, about all these emotions we're talking about, and our perceptions of the world, where this inner work is actually a really crucial resource for external action.
Reminds me of another passage that I was hoping to ask you about. Page 135, I posted it in the chat. You say, interior work is not just useful for sustaining the external work, it's the greatest form of resistance to the unjust structures we seek to change. If the effort to thrive undermines our ability to thrive, we are serving our own oppression. It's such an interesting sort of conversation about this interior work versus the exterior work, right? And I worry that someone might hear this as sort of we need to turn to the self-help aisle, and I know that is not what you're saying. I want to give you the opportunity to sort of yes, but no.
This goes to Audre Lorde's point, and this is also Tricia Hersey's argument in Rest is Resistance. This notion that if in the process, so if we think about the greatest resistance, the thing that's most likely to change capitalism as we know it, the thing that's most likely to lead to what Joanna Macy calls the great turning, the just transition that we all hope for. This is all stuff that if we have no energy and we are in fact unhealthy and we are literally and figuratively killing ourselves with the stress of the work of it, then it just does the work for them, right? I mean, it does the sort of, in fighting us, they've destroyed themselves. How great, then we win, right? There's a sense of, Tricia Hersey articulates this, and Audre Lorde, of course, articulates this, that the inner resilience, the inner resolve, the inner strength is in fact the most important active political warfare, is the way Audre Lorde puts it. But we don't often think about in dominant white society this notion of the interior as an exterior resource, right? I mean, we like to keep them really separated and really clear binaries around mental, physical health as a binary that I think is bogus, of course, in wisdom traditions, and indigenous communities have known this forever. And the medical models, don't address that at all. Or something like interior work versus exterior activism. We simply cannot figure out what the most effective actions that we should take are unless we do some interior work to figure it out, right? So there's a sense of the interior work being a kind of action. In my book, I try to provoke us to think that we think of interior work as passive and then activism as active and action, but we ought to think about as Hersey puts it, rest as a form of resistance, or it just, that's a provocation to have us think about things that we think of as stillness or passivity, if leveraged politically, are extremely important for political change.
So I'd like to invite you to take a couple minutes and consider, describe to yourself, writing journal prompt if you'd like to. Describe the experiences or struggles that you're facing that motivate you to take this course, and reflect on the kind of support that would most meet your needs at this time. I will put these prompts in the chat. Also, as you begin this course, take a moment to reflect on your own thoughts about the relationship between your emotions, your internal experience, and your actions, your external experience. In what ways for you are they separate, and what ways are they connected? What's your starting point in the course? If you would like to share in the chat, please feel free. I'll just give us a few minutes here. Person. Carl described anger and sadness. Carol wrote, sometimes I feel so much anger and hatred, I do not want to become who they are. So I resist with love and my values up front. Another Carol, victimized and then want to strike out, grieving the loss of my country, which feels like a life death issue, an inability to stop it, helplessness, helplessness and powerlessness. Rhymers, feeling a sense of powerlessness over the injustice I am seeing, wondering how best to utilize my energy, as so many of us. Overwhelmed and disheartened, and then slip into lethargy and hopelessness. We all share these experiences, maybe not in specifics. We each have our own uniqueness, but these patterns are very human, right? This is our human response to what we are seeing, and it makes sense. Of course, we're having this response. Thank goodness we're having this response, because if we weren't having this response, it would mean we were completely cut off. Angela, depressed, feeling powerlessness, that not even Congress and the Senate can do anything, so much negative news. And that news is a big source of we're getting all this input, right? We're getting all this input, and then what do we do with it, especially if we don't have outlets built into our lives? Stephanie, everything is so overwhelming. Bad things are coming at us from every direction. Sean, want to help move to amend in ways that I can do. Thank you, Sean, for volunteering to make phone calls. That's super helpful. Carla, I feel the need to pretend not to be stressed, to be happy. People don't want to talk about it. That's my soapbox right there in life. Greg, hi, Greg. Good to see you. To reflect, know, and act should all be connected. When they aren't for me, I lose centeredness and can easily be distracted and overwhelmed and lose perspective on the possibilities for positive change. And I just want to reiterate that Greg was one of the co-creators of this course. Derek, anger and hopelessness around corporations having so much power and so little accountability, seeking community to address the imbalance. Absolutely. And that's one of the really important lessons that I've heard over and over again in researching for this course, and that's included in this course, is that the isolation is one of the things that gets us the most, the feelings of isolation. So one of the one of the benefits of focusing on emotions, and I mean, besides the fact that our emotions are so central to who we are, and we're going to go into that in more detail, but is that we are all connected in our emotional experience, even when we're having different ones. The spectrum of human emotional experience connects us all. And so many people are feeling the way that no matter how you're feeling, there are other people feeling that way. So that is one way that, the practice in Buddhism around feeling connected to other people, other humans in your pain. Um, so moving into focusing in more on the specifics of the emotions. The quote here at the top: "We face a perfect storm of problems, a mounting polycrisis of political, economic, ecological, and social emergencies. Multiple forms of illness are poisoning our lives, our communities, and the planet. Band-aid solutions don't work. What's the remedy? How are we to navigate this tumult, show up, and be of service?" And that's a lot of what I think drew most of all of you here today. Um, so although these emotions, when we don't know what to do with them, can paralyze us, right? And we're not really very well taught how to do this in our world. Um, but when we do learn how, they can be used as lessons in fueling and developing emotional resilience. And it can transform not only how we live our own lives, but also how we can work in solidarity with others who are seeking positive change. So in this section, we're going to explore the negative impacts of suppressing difficult emotions, suppressing or overriding difficult emotions like grief and anger. And we're going to focus on the skills to work with and through these emotions in order to face the severity of the polycrisis unfolding around us. So, go on to the next one here. So this section, this lesson within this section is called Emotions Matter in Activism, which in some ways can be kind of counterintuitive for a lot of us. We tend to think of emotions as something to be managed or fixed, uh, but we're going to explore it a little more deeply. So the reason we have fear, the reason that it motivates us to act like our house is on fire, reading this quote here, is because there's something that we really love that is under threat. And the love is what we can really tap in to sustain long-term work. It is not the grief or the despair or the fear go away, but they can open a door to helping us tap this much more enriching, resourcing set of emotions as well. And I highly recommend the podcast episode that this is referencing. I'm going to share a PDF of resources, and that podcast reference is included in it. So, how do emotions matter? Based on research, we know that emotions are essential actually to numerous aspects of our lives. Can people see um, this image here, the why emotions matter? Is that large enough for folks to see? I'll be reading the text anyway, but so the ways that emotions are essential is it includes decision making, retention of knowledge, capacity to build community, ability to take responsible action to respond, and the ability to engage in meaningful work despite any setbacks that we might experience. Our cultural norm is often to fix or solve uncomfortable emotions or kind of just power through them in order to make them go away. Unfortunately, it becomes a really problematic relationship to our emotions. One, it hurts us because they come out one way or another. And also, they're really a source of wisdom in our lives. Another quote, all of your emotions are essential to your well being. Each one brings you a specific intelligence to guide your thoughts and action. So when we suppress our difficult emotions or override them, really we lose the source of wisdom, and it also taxes our system. It makes it harder for us to function and be clear about what we're doing. So it really immobilizes us to take effective action. So when we really learn the skills, there are skills out there. That's the good news. When we learn the skills to really engage emotion and get more comfortable with uncomfortable emotions, not that we're necessarily going to like them, but we comfortable in the sense that we like, oh, okay, I know what to do with this. I know how to support myself through this. So when we do that, it really empowers us to act more effectively on behalf of our world and on ourselves, of ourselves. So again, here's Dr. Sarah Jaquette Ray in the same interview, just a couple of minutes, really elaborating on the ways that our bodies, our minds, and our hearts are absolutely essential to our activism.
Suppression of grief and anger and so-called negative or uncomfortable emotions. Many people who are thinking about this question from sort of a mindfulness or psychology perspective are saying that the suppression of these emotions only serves to fuel the problem even more. So it does things like makes people want to numb out and distract themselves with sort of quick dopamine fixes like swiping and shopping and that sort of thing. And that the inability to really face the awful information and the awful news and the consequences emotionally, if we actually do face that, is part of the reason why people are not actually getting engaged as much as they should. So that such an emotion as denial, for example, is really an elegant cognitive solution to not being able to face the gravity of the truth of this. And so people are arguing if we could actually sort of remove the toxic positivity culture of most American society and get people to be more comfortable with these uncomfortable emotions that result from this information, we would actually be in a much better position to face this stuff. And we also know from any social movement, we know that our mental and our physical health affects our ability to engage in climate justice or any kind of political movement that we want to be a part of. And so if we think about our bodies and our minds and our hearts as the sort of tanks that need to be filled up, to use a terrible metaphor, right? But if we think about the strength and health and vitality of our minds and bodies as really essential to the work of climate justice, not just the sort of byproduct or externalized cost of our climate justice activism, which is the way I find most activists think about their health. Then we might think about this quite differently. And instead of just thinking about climate change affecting mental health in these bad ways, we might also want to turn the conversation around, which I'll talk about in a minute a little bit more, to think about how does mental health help us mitigate climate change, right? Why is mental health really a front line for our ability to do work on climate change?
She speaks, identifies the ways that with so much needing to be done, people often feel driven to keep working and working, to keep taking action. And then that can tax us in ways that eventually lead to burnout. I also I meant to mention earlier that Dr. Ray's work is focused on climate activism, as you can hear, but she herself even indicates about how it really is the work she's doing is applicable across the board of any of the crises that we are facing. So take a moment again for a couple of prompts. I'll put these in the chat. Take a moment to reflect on times when overwhelm, burnout, despair, anger, or other difficult emotions come up for you. How do you respond? In what ways do you distract, push aside, or try to fix the discomfort? In what ways do you acknowledge and work with the discomfort? I'll leave a couple minutes. people to process that, and feel free to answer in the chat if you would like to. Um, mhm. Derek writes, Derek writes, for distraction, they seek levity with close family, friends, or self-care. I just want to note, distraction's good to a point, right? All of our strategies are good to a point. So we need distraction. We need to be taken away from things also. We just want other options. Andrea wrote about rest, I think. Read novellas, watch comedy. Watch comedy is good. Read scientific research, go to the farm and work. Getting your hands in dirt, very important. Um, Carla, overeating. Food is a big source of comfort. Um, Dave, I throw myself into my work. Also, continue to obsessively watch the news, looking for seeds of change or even trees. Yes. So, looking for positive stories in the world of people doing the good work, caring for each other, successfully resisting. That is a major resource. An important thing to do to feed our minds. For work, I try to find things I can do about it. Saw a great piece over the weekend about the harm of passive consumption of distressive media. Yes, passive consumption without finding some way to get it out, like screaming at your walls writing, or is passive consumption without expressing it is really takes a toll on us. My daughter introduced me to the concept of anarchist calisthenics, and that helped me realize that speaking up about what is wrong is good so that I don't feel guilty about always being the rebel. Yep, super important. A lot of really relatable and helpful responses. So continuing on, the next section, we're going to focus in on grief, the necessity of grief, acknowledging and befriending grief as a step towards healing. A couple of the quotes Joanna Macy, many of you may be aware of, and we'll see in a video here in a minute. We have pathologized pain. And Frances Weller, who's also a psychotherapist and we'll reference down below, grief is more than an emotion, it is a core faculty of being human. Start with a video here from a movement strategist, activist, lifelong, Malkia David Cyril. And she speaks about her very personal experience with her wife's treatment with cancer and how that related to her experience of grief.
You know, my wife was a comedian, you know, and when she was in hospice, we spent a lot of time. I mean, I would say I spent the vast majority of the 2 years that my wife was aware of her metastatic cancer, trying to make her laugh, you know? And there was a lot of fun times in that, you know, and there was a lot of laughter in that. I mean, when she was in hospice, you know, when we were trying to lift her on the Hoyer lift to use the restroom, she requested that we sing songs from theme songs from 80s comedy shows like The Brady Bunch, you know, Facts of Life, Cheers, and we sang those songs. We belted them out. See, that's grief too, you know, and especially if we're thinking about grief in terms of its utility for social change, I think it's incumbent upon us to understand as movement leaders that sorrow, melancholia, it's an important emotion to understand, but it's the transformation, it's the engagement of that emotion, and the acknowledgement that joy is also present in grief. That's what becomes a motive force. That's what becomes a mobilizing energy. If we want people's grief to turn into action, if we want it to transform into agency, we can't only engage with it as sorrow. That's not going to work.
Right. And that's different from that, like, binary of you're all healed and everything is ducky and you find the gifts in what's happened to you versus like collapsed in a corner in despair. I think, especially if you've just lost somebody or you just received a devastating diagnosis, it could be easy to hear what you just said as don't stay in sorrow, don't stay sad, make something out of it. And that's actually not what I hear you say.
Not at all. In fact, I'm sad every day, and I will be sad for the rest of my life. And I think that any Black person in America is sad most days. I think that you can't be an immigrant in this country and not be sad. Sadness is a critical, crucial part of acknowledging the reality of our conditions. So I believe in sorrow. I believe in the night. I am 100% a fan of the truth. I think that the difference is that joy is also the truth. And there's, the point is not to exclude sorrow, it's to include joy. It's to include anger. It's to allow ourselves the full range of what acknowledging loss means.
Powerful and sometimes counterintuitive way to relate to grief. Take a moment and just reflect on how their perspective on grief surprises you or opens up new possibilities for understanding the pain of grief. I'm gonna take that moment to open the next video. You can feel free to share in the chat. The next video, we're going to hear from scholar Joanna Macy, who has done incredible work in the realm that this course is speaking to. And she is speaking about how befriending our despair liberates us by connecting us with each other and opening our hearts.
There's a colossal anguish. Everything from oil spills to nuclear waste. And it's not an individual matter. But we, as a planet people, are sick in our soul. We have pathologized pain. We have made it a wrong thing. We have made it like a mistake. Rather than acknowledging that we need pain to alert us for what needs attention. And we have been treating it as some kind of enemy to our cheerfulness. I began so in this as I was exploring how personally to befriend this pain, because I knew it was speaking some truth, as is indeed in Buddhism the first noble truth. The first noble truth that the Lord Buddha taught is dukkha, suffering. There is suffering. And if you want to get anywhere, honey, if you want to grow up, if you want to open to life, if you want to be enlightened, however you describe the state you're after, then you have to face that and see there is suffering. There were lines from my childhood in the church, the Christian church, you know, blessed are they that mourn. And that would come up in sound. And so what happens for people as they get real about their true feelings, when they tell the truth about what they see and feel and know is happening to our world, something so beautiful and so freeing happens. It's a jewel. It's like something Tiffany would like to recreate. But, oh, so lovely. Like us. I mean, like us, just like dew on the grass. Pain opens the heart and the eyes so you can see the beauty. So much grief. But the thing is, it's carried by just about everybody. It's a great, like public secret that you go on with this ache inside them for what's happening to our world. And they think they're alone in it. You don't speak it. This allows the world to become more vivid. It's like that poem of Mary Oliver where she says, you tell me your despair and I'll tell you mine. And this allows the world to become more vivid, seeing the wild geese, seeing this incredible planet that we're in with all the life that's around us. Because we had the courage, the strength to speak of our despair. But precisely because we speak it, we don't stay there. Because that despair is the covering of our love for our world, and we crack it open by speaking it so the love can be felt. So the key is in not being afraid of our pain for the world, not being afraid of the world's suffering. And if you're not afraid of it, then nothing can stop you.
And there was a comment above about someone speaking to that this association with grief and love, right? And how she turns to that, and that is a resource for her. And that's also expressed in this quote: grief, after all, is a manifestation of love, and our capacity to grieve is in some ways proportional to our capacity to care. But when we process grief in community, we are less likely to slip into despair. And another one: if I don't really let myself grieve and have all the feelings, I'm robbing myself of an ability to really understand it deeply. The grieving really informs my thinking and my future decision making. I can act more rightly and strongly and in a much more rooted way if I've let myself grieve. If I really grieve properly, then I'm much more fully available to be in service to the planet. But, we're really not taught how to acknowledge grief or to acknowledge it, let alone the wisdom of how to work with it and befriend it. But this wisdom is available, and we can learn these skills. So the course page has a number of different articles and also a podcast to choose from. People, we're not going to dive into all of them today because it's a shorter session, but these are here and available. I do recommend them. The idea here is to explore one or more of these, and then move on to the prompt down below. So for today's, I have chosen this one: Grief Belongs in Social Movements, which is an article, a piece by the activists we saw the video from around joy, grief and joy, the relationship. They talked about that. So we're not going to obviously read the whole read an article here today, but I just want to give it some of the context, a brief sort of summary of some of the writing in that piece so that you can get a taste of it. And these, in the article, they offer us these 4 steps. They describe them in some detail in the article, in a really elaborate, comprehensive kind of way. But these steps really are helping us move through grief. So the author wrote, I learned the hard-won lesson that grief demands its due, and it will take what is not freely given. But this journey through what experts call complicated grief, in which the bereaved person experiences debilitating feelings of loss that don't improve over time. What was revealed to me is that in order to give my heart to love and my hands to freedom movements, I first needed to understand and attend to grief. So, step 1, feeling the loss fully. She writes a quote, grief knows what it's doing. Grief is wise and ancient and knows what to do. When we interrupt the process of grief or ignore them, it can lead to apathy, addiction, and unhealthy anger. What loss hates most is to be ignored. So, creating space to be able to allow the feelings to be there, to allow them to be present in us, sharing them with other people who we are close to, is step 1. Step 2, they identify as seeking solace and comfort. As we expand our broad awareness of the wisdom of grief, and we learn to approach our own grief and grief of others without judgment, we can practice the art of accompaniment, of being with grief without casting any part of ourselves aside. And then finding inspiration, really important one. And the civil rights, Black Power and Third World movements from the 60s. Organizers and campaigns use song, poetry, and other art forms for the transformation of grief. Art in all forms allows grief to reveal to us. It gives sorrow an avenue, it gives it a channel to move through. So this is part of that, taking in too much and not having a way to get it out. Singing, art, and there's a lot of different avenues for that for people in terms of what form of expression works for them. And then taking action from this place of grounded grief. So by tending to our grief, we can find the course of action that meets that felt need that we have inside of us. But we can't skip steps, right? We have to sit with the discomfort first, followed by really comfort and inspiration. But then with that process, we need action to metabolize and transform it into the changes that we want to see in the world. So metabolized grief can really promote profound change. And it can really, this is, what they spoke to in the video a bit ago, the small clip, it can really open up joy inside of us. Joanna Macy mentioned about it opens our heart. So when we connect with the grief and give it an outlet, then our heart is more open. That's part of where the joy comes. And there are several, it's hard to not go through some of the other ones because these pieces are really good. There's also Dancing with Grief. Journalist and activist Dar Jamel shares with us how he learned why it is essential for him to work with his grief in order to accomplish the depths within himself to cope with the severity of the polycrises we face. In Holding on Hope, in the middle of a deluge of bad news about the world, resilience expert Dr. Chris Johnstone offers us a set of insights and practices to make it possible to remain inspired and enthusiastic when facing the barrage of painful realities. So just take a moment and think about what kind of your reflections on what I've talked about so far, and think about how you might incorporate these insights into your daily life, into your perspectives. Just take a moment before we move on and feel free to Share in the chat if you would like. No worries, Dave. Just to reflect on what we've spoken about so far in relation to grief, emotions, and what we've talked about so far, and kind of what pieces you might take that might be useful for you in your daily life. Singing with raging grannies at rallies and rehearse their songs frequently while alone. Absolutely. Singing. Song and singing with other people, actually research shows singing with other people has a powerful positive effect on our bodies. Kim, hi Kim. I'm inspired to intentionally seek art, music, and joyful activities at least as often as I take in the horrific news. It's really wise. This session has shed light on the benefits of this. I'm glad. I'll go ahead and move into our section on anger. Engaging anger, protecting what you love. Start with the quotes. What's wrong with wanting to scream at the idiocies of nature being destroyed, inequality exacerbated, and climate ravaged? Why is anger deemed unhealthy? I've spent a lifetime trying to run out my anger, so the idea that I should actually live with it and use it as a force for change is new. Anger is a response to the fear of losing that which you love. So in this section, there's a couple of articles we've selected for folks to dive into and explore. I do want to note this section on anger is a little smaller and less is a little smaller. That's because we explore anger in more detail in this third section of the course. And I'll talk about that as we get towards the end. But so this is just this piece is really around. So often we think of anger as a bad thing, or you're supposed to not be angry, or there's a lot of negative association with anger in our culture, and for a lot of people, we think of it as a toxic thing often. And so this piece of this course is really framing anger in a really different light, in terms of, yes, with any emotion there's an unhealthy version of it, right? We can turn anything into something unhealthy, but all the emotions have a wisdom in them, and that includes anger, and our impulse to act in protection of things comes from the healthy version of anger. So today it's really just looking at that aspect of relating to anger in a different way. And then in session 3, which I believe is on March 9th, we will go into more detail about really working with the different difficult emotions to transmute them into action. So I will read some of the pieces from Does the Climate Crisis Inspire Anger? This piece has got some funny stuff in it. She's got a sense of humor. I did want to, and there's some images also from it that I wanted to show, but I don't want to risk technical struggles. So I will focus on the words for today. She writes, I think of anger, fear, and despair as the three witches of climate gloom. The last one is the wickedest of them all for me. I focus on her. It's long been erroneously believed that using fear to motivate climate action backfires, so I've tended to shy away from it. Anger, I've ignored. Um, and sorry, I lost the thought. Um, so, anger is one of my big emotions. I feel it for sure, but so the fury comes on, but then it almost instantly turns into sadness, she writes. So I've always viewed anger as a transitory rage stop on the highway to positivity and enlightenment. But why can we not learn to accept it and share the house with it? That gets back to the quote at the beginning. What's wrong with wanting to scream at the idiocies of nature being destroyed? Why is anger deemed unhealthy? It should not be. I've spent a lifetime trying to run out my anger. Mm-hmm. So keeping the anger inside us is not about using it as some sort of pilot light to fire us up. It's instead about accepting all of our parts. In the climate moment, I can feel angry, enraged, sad, elated, or gobsmacked all at once. Climate anger without love is like a peanut butter cup with no chocolate. The anger, along with all the love for what we care about, is what's needed. And she also references this research article um, that's linked here. And their findings highlight that frustration and anger about the climate crisis. Again, these are about the climate crisis, but it applies to any of the crises that we are living in. They're adaptive responses, not negative. If we get stuck in them, it's negative, but the anger itself is not negative. Experiences of injustice or unfairness tend to provoke healthy anger that motivates collective action. And eco anger, as they call it, is uniquely associated with greater engagement in both personal and collective pro climate behaviors. So they describe anger as a key adaptive emotional driver of engagement with acting towards a better world. So just take a moment to reflect on this and think about how you've conceptualized related to anger so far, and sort of what your takeaway is from this sort of brief introduction of this way of looking at anger, and how you might be able to use these insights and incorporate them into your daily life. Take a moment here with this and feel free to share in the chat. I know for myself with anger, when I hear about situations, see pieces of news, or um, that there's fear. I mean, that's like all the different emotions come at different points, but with anger, especially with some of the things that have been happening lately, I feel like this rush of energy, right? Heat energy, and I've found that sitting still for a moment and allowing myself to just breathe and let that burn happen, to let the feeling of, in a lot of cases recently, it's I felt enraged, um, allowing that to just move through me, and within a few minutes oftentimes it shifts, and I can feel that energy almost as like it put energy in my gas tank, to use a mechanical metaphor, but um, I I don't find it debilitating when I'm able to pause and be with it, um, and really allow the sensations to move. That's one of the key things with all the emotions work. Greg writes, anger is energy. Like all energy, it can be constructive or destructive. Exactly. The key is to channel it or direct it for good, to speak in ways that cuts to the chase, to act boldly. Absolutely. Laura, anger makes me work faster to get out of the unsustainable greenhouse gas producing modern American lifestyle. Yes, it can fuel change in our own lives and our own actions. Derek, this will help me meet anger with acknowledgement and affirmation versus defensiveness or more anger. I'm glad. My anger needs some justice. Yes, it does. Exactly. That is exactly what anger calls for. That's why it's so important. Um, so just let's see. So here are the reflection questions on the screen here, are part of the course. And I'm going to paste these in the chat for those who that will be more helpful. And so we have 10 minutes. I just want to invite, if anybody would like to speak to any of the prompts that I just pasted in the chat, or any other thoughts or questions that you would like to share, we can kind of use this as a reflection slash Q&A space. So feel free to put anything in the chat. And I will again reiterate, the next section is going to be held on February 16th, and that section is on what you love, your core values, and your personal strengths. And then the section after that, which is held on March 9th, is called Transforming Emotions into Action, Grief, Anger, Despair, and Motivation. And again, that's scheduled for March 9th at 4:30. So that one is kind of a part 2 of what today has been. Dave wrote, being with others of like mind and experience helps me get to know who I am. Helps me to know that I'm not alone. Absolutely. It validates my perspectives. My anger invites me to participate and support changes as best I can. Jeffrey, my question is how to keep anger from becoming aggression. Absolutely. That's one of the other ways it can channel, right? We can suppress it down or it can blast out. And paying attention to it and giving space to it is one of the key things about it. And having places to channel it that we feel are effective too. So giving space to allow the anger to process internally, and to get past, sort of, if you think of emotion is a wave, really. Emotion that is not blocked or stopped functions as a wave. So often the anger, the first movement of it can get very intense. But if we are able to give space to it and find a way to process it a little bit internally, it will recede a bit. The energy of it can still be with us, but the most likelihood for aggression is as it's going up or up at the top, or if it stays stuck. So again, we will work a little bit more with specific ways to work with anger. But that's kind of a broad overview. Dave, grief and pain alerts me to what needs attention. Absolutely. Jeffrey, again, the most important concept about grief is love. Yes. Sorry about that. Nathan, I'd like to express my interest in attending and joining the building of methods which will bring an amendment that will serve the people and have political power to require it of all our representatives. In other words, sign me up for that or contract me for that. Um, Alfonso, can you send Nathan some of the some information? Welcome. We'd love to have you, Nathan. Stephen, I find determining precisely what causes my anger as a way to not express it at the wrong people or movement, and then find constructive avenues to express it. Yeah, good point. Yes, listening to the anger, like allowing the energy to move, and then really listening to it to really hear what it's pointing you towards. You can think of emotions as a compass almost. And sometimes it feels like it's spinning like crazy. Um, and it can be challenging to really give it enough space to find where it's really pointing. But in my experience, it's always pointing somewhere that is very clear once you're able to land on it. Um, and I'm just thinking if I can think of anything else in terms. Yeah, curious, Stephen, like how you're able to, what methods you use for identifying the cause, like the main focus that the anger is responding to. Derek wrote, community helps me get out of being alone with my thoughts, and community rituals are comforting. Absolutely. Jenny, after the BP oil spills in the Gulf of Mexico and seeing both the lack of justice, excuse me, and the flood of propaganda, I fell into deep grief. Then the Occupy movement erupted, and I thought, yes, maybe we really are going to save the world. It hasn't happened as quickly as I'd hope, but through Move to Amend and the larger movement, I've found real grounded hope. Absolutely. And actually, Occupy, I was working on my dissertation during Occupy, so I was not able to join, although I was wanted to. But seeing the images and seeing the signs, is actually the signs people were holding up, actually is what alerted me to corporate personhood in the first place. So in my mind, Occupy is what led me to Move to Amend also. So community, finding ways to our own personal ways of relating to our emotions and processing them, being able to face them, being able to not be bogged down by them in a stuck way. Sometimes you're gonna, there's a quote by one of the main activists, somewhere in here, where she writes, some days I just want to sit at home and watch the Hallmark Channel all day and lay in bed. And she's like, and I give myself those days, right? We're going to have days where we feel stuck, or days or time periods where the emotion feels like it's bogging us down. It's just if you stay in that state. So finding ways that work for you to relate to your emotions, and then finding that helping lead you to action and connection with other people in some form, which there's a lot of forms to do that in. Those are one of the main threads throughout this entire course. If I was to summarize it in a couple of sentences, that would pretty much be it. Mom 14 wrote, loving kindness towards ourselves, it's huge. And part of giving our emotional experience space is a kind of loving kindness to ourselves. Okay, well, that is everything for today. I will add again the course outline link to the chat. Angela wrote, both grief and anger come from despair and powerlessness. I moved frequently I think these are answers to the prompts. Thank you. Moved frequently in childhood, teenage years, and post-college. Moving and change excited me, and changing jobs has helped me adjust to change in spite of fear and trembling. Creativity helps. If others share the same values, I don't feel so alone. Being in nature and creativity help me cope. Nature is a big one for me. 5, not sure yet. Being busy and feeling fear and uncertainty has stopped the engagement. Being in the Zoom meeting helps, and ads for books and videos help. I'm so glad this helps. Let me get, let's see. I'm gonna find us as we have a couple, not quite at the end yet, time that we have. I'm gonna get over to the resources link. I have a PDF of the resources that the primary sources we used in this developing this course. It also includes the kind of a bullet point summary of the strategies, the main strategies that are reflected. So a summary of key strategies and recommended resources. I'm going to paste this in the chat so that folks can look up the resources on the way. This PDF does not list all of the articles and such. To access the articles, you can go into the course itself. But that PDF includes some of the major key resources and also the key strategies. And I will, so you're very welcome, Dave, and so grateful for all of you for joining. Thank you so much for participating with us. And we hope to see you at the future workshops. The next one is on February 16th, and it is on identifying what you love, your core values, and your personal strengths. And these are really concrete strategies for being able to, there's an activity that I walk folks through that really can help you zoom in on specific it's like, again, I'm going to use the compass image. It creates an internal compass for where you can channel what matters most to you and using your own unique skills in the world. So thank you all again. Take good care and see you next time.
Thank you so much, Tara.
How many gifts can a congressman take and somehow remain a good man? And how many times must good parents cry 'cause their little ones must sleep in a van? How many bribes can corporations give before their bribes are forever banned? The answer, my friend, is move to amend. The answer is move to amend. How many birds will fall from the air because they can no longer breathe? How many burdens can we the people take while Congress continues to deceive? How many billionaires will write all our laws while we the people still believe? The answer, my friend, is move to amend. The answer is move to amend. How many wars must our young people fight, like in Iraq and in Afghanistan? How many mothers and children must die from our drones and tanks in their lands? How many senators would send their own sons 'cause they truly believe in their stance? The answer, my friend, is move to amend. The answer is move to amend. The answer, my friend, is move to